Hey Bebop fans, what is up? Simon here. Welcome to Hannah Talk, and today I'm here with a very special guest. He's an actor who's appeared in live action projects such as Star Trek, Just Jordan, Family Law, Hannah Montana, and is also well known in the voiceover world, particularly as the voice of Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop and other anime shows such as Naruto, Cyborg 009, Rave Master, Rurouni Kenshin, Digimon, Gungrave, Black Heaven, and Tiger and Bunny. Please welcome Bo Billingsley.
Hello, everybody.
And how
Hope
are you?
everybody is doing well. It's good to be with you.
It's absolutely fantastic to have you here, Bo. And how are you?
I'm doing good, Simon. I'm doing very well, and it's great to chat with you.
It's absolutely an honor to chat with you as well. So, on to the first question. How did you get started in acting?
Well, actually, I started when I was in college, 100 years ago. Um, my, as fate would have it, I was captain of my football team, and one of my fraternity brothers was directing a play for his graduate program. And it was Emperor Jones, which I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's by Eugene O'Neill, and it takes place on a Caribbean island, and he's an emperor of the island, and he kind of loses his mind, and he's chased by ghosts, and he has silver bullets to kill the ghosts, and blah blah. So anyway, my fraternity brother was thinking would it be a good idea to for me to do the lead in the play, and it would bring the campus together because that was way back in the day when Vietnam was going on, and the theater arts and fine arts people didn't mix too well with the football players. We had the short hair, they had the long hair, and they were kind of like the hippies. And so anyway, I decided to do it. And actually, when my teammates, some of my teammates, found out I was doing that, they were they were ribbing me a lot, and but actually it had the desired effect. It was a great experience for me, and it brought the campus together. And because back in those days, athletes didn't become actors like they do nowadays.
Right.
And actually, that was my first actual acting experience. But when I was in grammar school, I think it's about fifth or sixth grade, we had a talent show, so I did the ham bone, and you're playing your body, beating your leg to the beat, and and I also sang Silent Night in a Christmas play. So that was kind of my acting background before I actually got started. I got started professionally when I was in law school. Uh, as fate would have it. I don't know if how much you know of the geographics of the states, but I was in law school in Connecticut, and I went down there, started in my third year, going down to New York, and started to get into the acting business. And a friend, a cousin of our next door neighbor, was in the business. He was the director, and so he kind of took me under his wing and told me what to do. I had to get photographs and get an answering service, join the unions, and like that. And so he ushered me along and helped me get going, and that's how I started.
Wow. And as you said, it's it was all a matter of fate in some way.
Yeah, it was actually, kind of being in the right place, right time, having an itch to do that. Um, but yeah, I was certainly bitten by the bug when I did Emperor Jones because he was. I don't know if you know how well you know the play, but he's on stage alone a lot with all of these soliloquies and talking to himself, and that kind of suited my personality. Getting being on stage, getting all the attention.
Fantastic. So, and as you were talking about, like with all talking about like a bit of the background that got you into working on television and films and such, what was like your first live action role uh, of going into that point, and what was it like doing that role?
Well, it's interesting. That's a good question. Um, Back in those days, I my first live action role on television was in a soap opera, which was called As the World Turns. It was in New York City, and was live television. It was not taped. It was actually live, and nobody had any VCRs or there was no recording of it. Nobody was recording TV shows or movies at home, and it was just like I had like two lines. I was worked in the jail, and I was reading the paper and sitting there with a prisoner, and I had a little chat with them. But it was interesting because I never saw it, and I asked my friends, how was I? How did I do? which is kind of a weird situation, I guess, when you think about the way the media is now with this instant communication and everything is recorded. Yeah, my first experience was live television where I never saw it, and I hoped I was good. and and, uh, and I'm trying to think. Except for doing plays, that was the only live. That's the only time I did any type of television live, because they just didn't do that back in those days. That was my first live action experience on television.
Right, fantastic. And as you were talking about, like, not because that show was basically done live and it was never recorded back during that period, because the technology wasn't accessible then. But do you like watch yourself in like any projects that you've worked on, or do you just tend to shy away from that?
Yeah, of course I do. For not necessarily from the standpoint of entertaining myself, watching myself, but from the standpoint of evaluating and trying to get better, at what I do. And I think that's a mindset probably that we all have. I think we all should have, no matter what our endeavors are. Whether you're a golfer or a tennis player or a lawyer, that you try to get as good as you can get. And you're always learning and trying to get better. And that's one of the reasons that I'll watch myself or listen to myself to see how I can improve my storytelling. Because that's what we're doing as actors. Helping to tell a story and trying to do it as best we can and in the most entertaining fashion that we can.
That's absolutely right, and I speak for myself as saying this as as a musician myself. I understand the importance of recording yourself, like listening back, and especially like in listening and watching yourself. That way like there's little details and such, and you say, oh, it wasn't quite as good on that point there. I can improve upon it the next time I do something like this. I can definitely relate to that, and that's exactly true, because that's something that every person in that profession, whether it's acting, whether it's music, whether it's in any sort of field, needs to have that sort of thing to be able to be assured of themselves and say, oh, okay, so I wasn't too good on that point onward, but now I understand what I need to do to get better on the next one. So
exactly. And one of the things I found, that was actually years ago when I was in school, that when I was writing something, like I wrote an essay or whatever it was, and to submit it to the professor, that when after I wrote it, and then I read it immediately after, I had a certain response to it. But then after a little time lapsed, I would read it again, and for some reason, it always seemed like, oh, it's better than I thought it was. And I found that was the same thing, the case with singing and a lot of my work, that if I listened to it right after I did it, it didn't seem to be as good as if I listened to it a week later. I don't know if you found that as a musician. What instruments do you play?
Well, I play drums, I play guitar, and I sing as well.
Wow, very talented.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know if you found that, but I found that when I record myself, and then a little time lapse, invariably I have a better opinion of it than the opinion I had when I listened to it right after I did it.
Mm. Yeah, that's exactly the same in the same sense for me. I mean, I've just recently started getting into recording myself as much as I possibly can in that sense, because I never used to do that myself during that sense of things. But now I started getting into the habit of recording myself every chance I get, and it's absolutely true what you say about that. Like when you watch or listen to something for the first time, you go, "Oh, this is not as good as I thought it was." But then when you listen back again in retrospect, when you think back to that moment, then you start wondering, okay, no, this is actually a lot better than when I first saw it the first time. It's like it's like with the film, the Bryan Singer film Superman Returns. When people actually started seeing that film, they went, "Oh, this is actually a pretty good Superman film." But now they're looking back on that film, going like, "This is probably one of the worst films he's ever done in his life." No offense to Bryan Singer, no offense.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I know what you're saying.
But please make Superman right this time.
Right? Yeah.
But going on to the other work that you've done, like you've appeared across a variety of live action movies and TV series. But what was like your favorite live action TV series or movie to work on?
Well, I'll have to say Jess Jordan. I don't know if you ever saw Jess Jordan. Um, Jess Jordan was a series that I was a series regular on Nickelodeon in 2006, 2007. And I played a grandfather. I ran a diner, which was called Papa Grant's Place. I was Papa Grant. And I lived upstairs over the diner. And my newly divorced daughter came to live with me with her two children, my two grandkids. And we had capers. It was a nicely written show where we had the storylines intertwined, the kids' story, the kids' lives with the adults' lives. And I was kind of like in cahoots with the kids, And I'd have a line like, "Don't tell your mother about this," and but the nice thing about it was that my granddaughter was did a lot of atmosphere work on the show, so I was actually able to work with her, and it was a family show, and as fate would have it, I had an opportunity to work with my granddaughter on the show, even though she was just atmosphere. And but the last show of the first season was really incredible. We had this huge food fight in the diner, and so the kids were they were dancing and this and that, and all of a sudden food started to fly, and because that's the way the script was written, of course. But and one of the adult atmosphere players didn't show up, so consequently my daughter also worked on the show in that episode. So my granddaughter and my daughter are throwing food at me, Kool-Aid at me, mashing cake into my face on television. And I remember my granddaughter telling my daughter that, "Mommy, this is so much fun." And so I'll have to say, because of that, that was probably my most enjoyable experience. I played a slave in a miniseries in the 80s called North and South, in which I had a principal role, working with Buddy Swayze. Everybody knew him as Patrick Swayze and Leslie Ann Down, but we shot in Charleston, South Carolina, actually outside of Charleston in a plantation, on a plantation, and I was born in Charleston, and so my parents, although I was born in Charleston, I grew up in Connecticut. So my parents came down to, and that was the first time they ever came to visit me on a set, and so we're in my birth town, and I'm playing a slave, which that made it automatically an emotional experience, because we actually did some filming in actual slave quarters. And the character I put together, his name was Ezra. Uh, the character I put together was like a compilation of my grandfathers and my uncles and my father. And so that was an extraordinary experience as well, as I say, because my parents came back to the place of my birth, and they were able to experience. They stayed about a week, so they were able to share my experience filming because it was, far from their consciousness and and their life experience, because nobody in our family had been actors, and so it was just an extraordinary experience for them, and consequently for me. And we went to see my grandparents' grave, and that was an extraordinary experience as well.
Fantastic. And as you were talking about, like with working on Just Jordan with your family and
Yeah.
such, like have you like did you ever do like any other roles that had your family featured in after that series?
No, that was the only time. That's the only time that I actually worked um, with um, with my granddaughter.
Right.
I didn't encourage my children to get involved in show business. I figured if it was in their blood, they'd find it, and so I just raised them as regular kids with a regular childhood. Um, little league games, baseball and volleyball and basketball and all of that, because I wanted them to have a nice childhood. So, uh, and consequently, my daughter is a certified public accountant. She's a comptroller for corporation. My son is an attorney. He's practicing law, and they live regular lives. Now, my granddaughter, because of the Jess Jordan experience, she was bitten by the show business bug. Right? So, like when it played out. My thoughts played out with her. When she was 7, she was involved in a theater group, and she auditioned for a role, and she didn't get the role. So she was just devastated. She was crying, and we had to console her. And I told my daughter, I said, this is the reason I didn't encourage you and your brother to get involved in show business. You're not a child at age 7 is not supposed to be weeping because of the disappointment of not getting a role.
Mm.
And I said, it's hard enough as an adult, but as a child, I said, I didn't want that for you guys. But as I say, because of her experience on Just Jordan, she was bitten by the bug, especially our second season. The first season, it was a single camera show. But the second season, which meant it was not filmed like a situation comedy, so there was no audience or anything. It was just filmed like any other drama. But the second season, they did it as a multi-camera show. So we rehearsed all week, and then we taped on Friday night, and it was just like this huge party. We had a stand-up comedian, which is standard, warmed up the audience while we were getting ready, and so they would have singing contests and dance contests, and the winners would win T-shirts from just Jordan T-shirts, and it was just like this fabulous big old party on Friday nights, and that's what sold my granddaughter that she wanted to do this for a living. And but we kept, the whole time as a child, we kept emphasizing with her that this is fun. You're just doing this for fun. That's all you're doing. This is fun. When you grow up, you're going to just lead a regular life, a regular life. So consequently, she's in college now, and she's heading for a regular life. I don't think the show business thing is necessarily in her blood. She's still doing a little bit. She actually did some voice work on Pokemon, the most recent Pokemon, but I think that her focus is slightly different because in our business, even if you're successful, you still get a lot of disappointment. You get a lot of rejection, and I mean it's not necessarily a rejection if you try to look at it the right way, but whatever it is, you go home without the job, and it's not like a regular job interview where somebody sends you maybe a nice note saying, unfortunately, it's not going to work out, blah, blah, blah. In our business, you go and you audition, and then you just don't hear. I
Yeah.
remember years ago, I had auditioned for a commercial, and I was thinking I was in there. I might be, I think I might get this. I might get this. And then I was playing tennis with this guy, and that subject came up, and he says, "Oh, we shot that yesterday." said, no, wait, what? He said, yeah, we shot that yesterday. It was a lot of fun. I said, oh, okay. And so I mean, the actor's life is just so bizarre, and I think probably it's the same with musicians.
Mm. Yep.
You're out there trying to sell what you've got to sell, and basically yourself and your talents, and it's difficult. Of course, nowadays it's so much easier than years ago because there was no Facebook, there was no way to put your work out there.
I,
Remember when I first came to Hollywood, um, first couple of years, I think I had like two or three auditions a year, and there's no way you can make a living at it. And when when you're first starting, nobody knows you out here, and so you're trying to get your career underway, and it's very hard to get known if you're only getting two or three auditions a year. And
yep.
but so that back in the day, I guess I'm sounding like my father now. Back in my day, but that's the way it was. It was very difficult to get a foothold so that you can get your career going. I mean, it's wonderful now with the media the way it is now. It's everything. I mean, you and I are having this great conversation, and I'm in L.A. and you're in Melbourne, and so it's terrific. Like you with your music, you can put your music out there and get people to enjoy your talents.
Absolutely.
That's a terrific thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and you're absolutely on point about that. I mean, from it's absolutely on point. I mean, both of our industries, of course, I definitely know. I mean, I haven't been in the industry for as long as you have, of course, but I can definitely tell from like experience and such that yeah, absolutely, it's a lot of face of rejection where you have to deal with people who are not going to call you back and such. I deal with this. I've dealt with this like all the time and such, and I've and usually the best option to do in some stuff like that is just keep pushing forward. That's all you can do. And two, start up your own project, and you be your own boss. But
Yeah, that's very true.
but also like and that's absolutely true on that point where there are people that and that you have to remember in our sort of industries that you got to remember to enjoy it and have fun with it as well. You can't take it too seriously because otherwise you as it's pointless really. You have to enjoy it and you have to have fun with it as such.
Yeah, I have to enjoy the process. That's what I tell people because I have relatives over the years, relatives, friends, strangers. Everybody asks me how do I. They want to get into the business, and my first question is why. Why
Mm.
do you want to get into business because you want to be a star, or because you want to be famous, or because you want to be rich, or whatever? And if those are the answers, I say those are really not the right answers. I think you should find something else. Find something that you love, because if you don't love putting a character together, developing a character, and delivering your performance, if you're enamored of the final result, being rich and famous, then that's the wrong motivation. It's so that if you enjoy putting together a character, or if you enjoy writing music and performing your music, um, that's the reason to get into the music world, not because you want to be rich and famous. And I think that enjoying the process, because what you do day to day is it should be the source of your enjoyment. So I've been lucky enough to have a career, and basically the way I look at it is that I've been doing my sort of, in one way of speaking, I've been doing my hobby and making a living at it. You know, if you think about the thing you enjoy most and you're able to make a living at it, that's like the ultimate blessing in life. To be able to do what you really really enjoy and make a living at it. Now, unfortunately, in our business, in the arts and the music and acting, you the majority of people don't make a living at it. I mean,
Mm.
that's just what it is, and especially the way the media is now, the competition is so much more intense from when I started. Even though I wasn't, it was hard because it was hard to get going. I wasn't in competition with people all around the world. Back in the day, if you were serious about being an actor, or being a performer, you either went to New York or you went to L.A. And if you couldn't stay in Atlanta and do it, you couldn't stay in wherever it was. You had to come to the big time and make a big commitment, leave your family and you know go someplace where you don't and do something to make a living while you're trying to um, you reach your dream. So you know, doing the bartending or whatever it is, figuring out how you can eat while you're pursuing your dream. And but now the way the communication is, I mean, it's just astonishing that people in Bangladesh they can put their stuff out there. They don't have to come to Hollywood, you know. I mean, they can put their stuff out there in the media and YouTube and become a sensation. And all of a sudden, they're getting calls, you know. And so I guess it's a double-edged sword.
Mm.
The fact the way the media is that you are able to get your stuff out there, but you're also in competition literally with, I mean, the whole world. And whereas as I said, in my day, I was in competition with people who came to L.A. or people who came to New York, and so that limited it because it takes a big step to leave the comfort of your home, your hometown, and strike out in the big world and go to a big city where nobody knows you and where you don't have a way to make a living. You got to find a way and and pursue your life. So it's and that's why I say to people, if you don't absolutely enjoy acting or you know being a musician, don't do it. Don't do it because you want to be famous or you want to be rich. You do it because you love it. And if you don't absolutely love it, don't do it. And most of us, and I'm sure you're in that situation where when I first started, I did a lot of stuff for free. You
Yep.
know, I did plays for free. I went and sang in nightclubs for free. I was any place I would, you know, I could get somebody to see my work. You know, and you did so much for free, and that's, you know, I wasn't the only one. All of the actors were doing that. You're just scrambling around to try to get somebody to see how good you are.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and that's really, really good advice. Now, now, one of the projects I noticed that you worked on. Sorry to be jumping ahead like this, but one of the projects I noticed you worked on was Star Trek.
Yes.
What was your reaction to stepping into the Star Trek universe, and what was it like being part of that universe?
Well, just astonishing. I'll tell you about I have, there were two openings for me. First was I did Star Trek Into Darkness with J.J. Abrams, and where I played a starship captain, and practically all of my stuff was cut, but luckily I made the movie. That's the other thing. I worked 3 weeks on the movie, and you know, practically all of it was cut. But when I auditioned, you know, everything is secret now in Hollywood. You don't, like when we're auditioning for video games, we don't even know what the game is we're auditioning for. We are signed in these non-disclosure agreements. And so, anyway, when I auditioned for Star Trek Into Darkness, I was given a page, a monologue to get to read, excuse me, to deliver, and I had no idea what the project was, and it was not at JJ's production company. If it was at his production company, I might have been able to put two and two together, but it wasn't at his production company. It was at the casting director's office, and they put us on tape, on video. So, um, so I did that audition, and about 3 weeks later, I get a call from my manager saying, "You know that new thing you did, you booked it." I said, "Oh yeah, what was it? I don't, you know." And I was thinking it was maybe some little project that went right to video, you know, right to DVD. And she said, "Well, it's this little movie called Star Trek." And I said, "No, wait, would you say that again?" she says, "No, that's what it is. It's the new Star Trek movie that J.J. Abrams is doing." I said, "Wow, I had no idea what it was because the size didn't give me any hint. I knew I was a captain. Actually, I thought I was a captain on a a ship on the ocean, and as it turned out, it was a spaceship. Right? But so anyway, yeah, that was how the experience began, and working with JJ was really a phenomenal experience because he's a very clear thinker and he has a very strong, clear vision of what he wants, and he has the ability to communicate what he wants. You know, to be a good director, you not only have to have a vision, but you have to also be able to communicate what you want to the actor so the actor can deliver. You know, and so we were down at Sony Studios, which I still know it as MGM. Just still, once again, old school. When I first came here, it was MGM. Um, they were using three different sound stages, and we had a code word. We never used um, um, the word Star Trek. We never used those words.
Oh, wow.
Everything was code, and so we drive up, and you tell the guard, you know, give them the code, and they say, "Oh, okay," and then you go, and then we were using three different sound stages on the lot, and so I one of the things I wanted to do was to try to get my wife to come on the set to visit, and it was a closed set, so they weren't allowing any visitors, and so anyway, so I asked the powers to be, and it took about a week, but finally we got permission, and so she came with me, and they gave us a driver and a van, and so he drove us to all the three sound stages, and we did a tour. So she was able to walk on the bridge of the Enterprise, and to walk to Med Bay, and then go into the transporter room and on the Enterprise, which is pretty special, because as I say, you can probably tell I'm all about family. So I was able to get her on it. And the funny thing about that was that the day that she came to visit, I wasn't working that morning, so we came, but she had to leave. She had an appointment. I was working that afternoon, and so we were in makeup and got ready. Peter Weller and I, we were going over together, and they had a little golf cart that would take us from our dressing rooms from makeup over to the other side of the lot where we were filming that particular day. And but they also gave us these head to toe black capes with hoods, so that we would cover up our costumes so that people around the lot couldn't see what we were wearing. Once again, to keep everything secret, so they couldn't see our costumes. And so anyway, so we go over, and we're walking up onto the soundstage, and then I saw who I thought was Steven Spielberg. So Peter, you know who Peter Weller is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. RoboCop.
Oh,
And
wow.
so anyway,
Yeah.
he says, "Hey, Steven's here." I said, "I thought it was." He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "You got to introduce me." "I got you covered, brother. I got you covered." And so he was, because J.J. Abrams was Steven Spielberg's protege. So Steven would kind of tutored J.J. Abrams along early on in his career. And so he stopped by to say hello. And so anyway, they're sitting down, talking and blah, blah. And so Peter introduced me to Steven. Steven gets up out of his chair and shakes my hand and said, "It's a great pleasure to meet you, Bo Billingsley." It's like I was really, really somebody, some big star or something. He was such a classy guy, But that whole group, JJ, was the same way. As fate would have it, when my wife came on this set with us, we got the tour of the sound stages. When we went over to the sound stage where we were working, they were on a break, and so because it's hard to introduce if they're trying to work, it's hard to you can't really interrupt. You don't want to interrupt and introduce your wife to everybody. But as it was, they were on a break, and there was this area where everybody was hanging out. So she got to meet everybody, Chris Pine and Zach and JJ and Peter and so anyway, she left, And then, so just to tell you how classy JJ is, and she left, and then we went to lunch, and then we came back, and then we started working again. And so JJ says, uh, Bo and Cece. He said that is the best couples names I've ever heard. I said, what are you talking about? He said, no, no, really, really. And then he just spent like maybe 10 seconds there with us, and then he like totally described my wife. She's a very sensitive person, very caring, nurturing, and all of these things. And I was so impressed that he was such so tuned into the human spirit. That he was he sized her up so accurately in such a short period of time. Um, but anyway, yeah, the experience was extraordinary, and as I said, the only disappointing thing about it was so much of my stuff was cut. I remember there was one scene where we were shooting my when did you see Star Trek Into Darkness?
To be honest, actually, no, I haven't.
Okay.
It's on my watch list though. So.
Okay, okay. Well, I won't spoil it for you, but there's a particular scene in there where I'm in physical difficulty, and I'm on the ground. My stuntman has done all his thing, so I take his place on the ground, and then JJ comes over and looks down at me, and says, "This definitely will be in the movie, right?" And but of course, it wasn't. Uh, but then of course that's the danger of show business. You don't really know. Remember when I first started out, I did a couple of shows, TV shows, and I told my family and friends, "It's coming on," and then the one little scene I had was cut out, so that was very embarrassing when you're telling people, "Back, tune in, I'm going to be on TV," and then they're watching this hour-long show, and then I never show up. So I stopped saying. I just stopped telling people, except for my parents, because and my very closest friends back home, because you're telling everybody, and a lot of times they would put it in my local newspaper that I was going to be on a show, and so that was because I was a bit of a celebrity in my home, my hometown, and so that was so embarrassing, and it was embarrassing. I was embarrassing my parents too. They put something in the paper, and then so what I changed that up. They put something in the paper after I was on. You know, Bo was going to be on Barnaby Jones or on T.J. Hooker. That's another time. Actually, another time that I worked twice on T.J. Hooker. T.J. Hooker was a TV show that William Shatner had after Star Trek. That was in the '80s. He was a cop, and so I did 2 episodes of that show with him. Um, uh, and then now my other entree into Star Trek was Star Trek Continues. Are you familiar with that card? Star Trek
Yes.
Continues. Yeah.
Isn't that the new
So,
new Star Trek series that's coming out this year, I believe?
no. Star Trek Continues is a web series that they ended up doing. I think 11 episodes, and it's what it was is a continuation of the original series that was on TV in the '60s, and using the original sets, replicas of, but it was the original sets, and Vic Mignogna played Kirk, and so we had all the original characters, but on the original set. So it was a continuation of their journey of finding new worlds. So now in that, so you can go online if you just go online and look for YouTube, look for Star Trek Continues. You can watch that. You can watch that series, and it was a fan funded series,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
was awesome. The fans are so terrific. I mean, literally. I mean, we didn't make any money doing it, but it wasn't about making money. It was about being true to the project and enjoying the experience. We shot in Kingsland, Georgia, and but it would be fun if to watch that show. It's the original, a continuation of the original series. So the original Enterprise, because the new Enterprise is basically all white, and it's different from the original Enterprise. But this Star Trek Continues uses the old sets and the old phasers and the old costumes, and so that I'm sure you don't remember that. I remember the show when it was on, so it has a nostalgic effect with me because I watched the I watched the original series.
Well,
But I
actually,
just enjoy being part of that Star Trek. And in Star Trek Continues, I play a Vulcan a Vulcan soldier. I'm actually a Vulcan member of Starfleet Command, and so I got to wear the ears.
that's fantastic.
I got to wear Spock's a style of Spock's ears.
Oh, fantastic.
Vice Admiral. I was a Vice Admiral. Storm was the character I played, so that was really a lot of fun to do that.
That's fantastic. And I've actually got a bit of a slight confession to make if here for and also for anybody that will be listening to this later on, but my first experience with Star Trek was actually from the Patrick Stewart versions, which Patrick Stewart started, which was the Next Generation series, and I had not watched any of the original stuff with William Shatner until last year, and that was the Wrath of Khan and the Search for Spock. So that became my full introduction to the original Star Trek.
I see. Well, that makes sense. I mean, you're not of our generation.
Yeah,
We're older folks, so I'm glad you introduced yourself to it.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's a wonderful it's a wonderful part of American culture.
Mm.
It really is actually of the world's culture.
World's culture
Uh,
indeed.
yeah, it's phenomenal. It's just absolutely phenomenal, and it's had the life that that it's had.
Mm.
Just I mean, starting in I think it started in '66 or '67, and here we are in so many new incarnations of it now.
Absolutely, it's gone through so much history that series,
Yeah,
and I actually do remember like with Vic Mignogna. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name there, but yeah, I actually do remember seeing like a picture of him in dress up in like full Star Trek gear and such,
yeah,
and I
yeah. He
thought.
plays Captain Kirk, right?
Yes, yeah, and I realized, oh wow, I didn't realize that it was a Star Trek web series. I thought it was just a weird app on something or that on Facebook, something that made him dress up like a Star Trek character. But wow, that's that's amazing.
Right? Yeah. No, it's been phenomenal, and it's all because of the fans. I mean, it's been fan funded, and he did. I mean, it's his project, and he directed some of them, and but I think he did 11. I think it was 11 episodes, or pretty close to it, and so I did. I think it was I did episode 7 where I played Vice Admiral Stom with my Vulcan ears. Um, but yeah, it's I've been very lucky in my career to be involved with Star Trek and be involved obviously with Cowboy Bebop. It's just something that they've become cult favorites. They're
Mm,
like icons of the culture.
absolutely, they absolutely are. Now, what's like one live action film or TV series that you've worked on, or that you enjoy as a fan? Would you want to see turned into like an anime or an animated series?
Wow. Well, actually, uh, there was a series that I did. I just actually did one episode. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like these guys that came from outer space, and they could zap things with their mind, and like if you're standing, you're about to attack me, and these guys could use their mind to zap your feet into a flower pot so that you couldn't move. it, it was what the heck was the name of it? I forgot the name of it, but anyway, that type of um, a total comedy, absolute total comedy with silly things happening. That's something I would like to see as an anime. I mean, you might be more aware of the anime genre than I am. That there might be something like that, but I'm not aware of anything that's like that. That's just absolutely totally um, like a sitcom as anime. I don't know if you're aware of anything. I'm
Uh,
not.
I think there have been like several sitcom animes in the past, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that much if they came up with that sort of idea just like that, or something like that, or if they already have something like that happening already. But who knows? Personally, for me, I would actually really love to see like an anime version or an animated series version of Star Trek, Doctor Who, or the X Files.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. That would be a lot of fun. That would be
And
a lot of fun.
I've actually got another small confession to make. Until last year, I had not seen one episode of Doctor Who or the X Files.
Oh, well, you were working on your music.
Yeah, or just probably because I just didn't have. Just because I kept hearing all the names going passed around, like saying, "Oh, Doctor Who's awesome" and such. I saw like the police box and I saw the sonic screwdriver, and all that kind of stuff. And going like, okay, okay, all right. So I'll see the series for myself and see what the big deal is, and all that kind of stuff. And I've not stopped watching it since, and it kept me going back to it ever since. And the same with the X Files, as well. No matter what people might say about David Duchovny and all that kind of stuff, but you're an awesome actor, David. You're awesome.
Yeah,
But
I was in Florida a couple of years ago doing a public appearance, and at a comic store, excuse me, kind of a manga store, and they had a TARDIS there, and so I I definitely had to get my picture taken coming out of the TARDIS, which actually is posted on Facebook now on my in my photos. But yeah, the Doctor Who. I'm definitely a fan of Doctor Who.
that's absolutely fantastic. Now, moving into the voiceover world, what got you so interested in voice acting?
Well, I was actually asked to dub some foreign films into English um, in the '80s. Whenever they had a friend of mine called me in, whenever they had Doug Stone, I don't know if you know the name, uh, but he called me in. They were whenever there was an African character in a foreign film, like a German film, they would call me in. To do the African, to dub it into English, and so that's how I got started in the voice world, and then uh, obviously that was before anime became a thing, and then Kevin Seymour, uh, who was also a friend of Doug's, kind of got me involved, and see, I'm trying to think of one of the Maycross Plus, maybe things way back, and it's just kind of a word of mouth thing, that it's just especially back in those days, as I say, there was no way for you to peddle yourself, so to speak. So it was just like who you knew, and somebody knew somebody, and said, "Oh, we got this thing going." And when anime started, it wasn't big at all. As a matter of fact, when I was first asked, I don't remember what the project was. I was first asked, I didn't know what it was. I said, "What's anime?" And of course, it's huge now, but at that time, it wasn't. I think Robotech is like one of the first, and but that's how I started doing voice stuff, um, dubbing foreign films.
Right. And so, what was like your first voiceover role, and what was it like doing that role?
Actually, I'm trying to think. Actually, my first voiceover role was I did the voice of a puppet back in New York when I first started. It just occurred to me. Yeah, I did the voice of a puppet. But I'm trying to think. I don't know if Legend of Black Heaven was before Cowboy Bebop. I did so many of these, as I say, years ago, that I when I go to a convention, sometimes the fans know more about my career than I can recite. It's hard because we were doing things that we didn't know what they were, uh, and and obviously I wasn't watching because there wasn't really much anime out there to watch, so I wasn't watching it, and so there's a lot of things I did that I really never even saw them.
Right.
But you're going back to I don't know how long ago Rurouni Kenshin was. I think Ghost in the Shell was in '95. Uh, that's a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint to answer
Right.
that question.
Yeah, that's all right. But with voice acting, what's the preparation that you go through in voice acting as opposed to live action?
Well, let me see. There are different areas of voice acting. I narrated I had a couple of series on the History Channel that I narrated called Suicide Missions, and uh, which later became Dangerous Missions and Modern Marvels. And so narrating, which is voice acting, telling a story, is obviously completely different from doing narrating or voicing animation. Um, voicing, um but in any event, we're storytelling. That's the way I see it. We're storytelling. Whether I'm doing a narration or whether I'm voicing a character in an animated series, it's telling a story. Say, on camera, you're telling a story as well. But of course, on camera, you have you have your body, your whole being to help you deliver your part of the story. But with voice, obviously you don't have that. You have your voice. The animation basically is there. Now we have motion capture now, which has evolved, which helps along on that line. Uh, but basically, you have to tell the communicate just with your voice, with your grunts. Like an anime's got you have a grunt, and you gotta deliver three different emotions in that grunt. and but in any acting, whether it's voice acting or on camera, I try to find something within myself that is parallel to the character, that
Right.
something that is part of me that's in the character, and try to branch off from that. Now, obviously, if I'm doing a monster in a in a video game or in an anime, um, there's probably not too much of me. I don't feel like there's a monster inside a bow. Hopefully, there isn't. So it becomes a matter of using your creativity to within the confines of the flap, because you're limited by the flaps. If you're redubbing something, if you're doing original animation, that's a whole different matter. But if you have to fit within the flaps, the writer has to fit the flaps, and the actor has to fit the writer's flaps, and so there's a certain restriction that you have. And the other thing is, with you have your movement when you're doing live action, as opposed to um, you have to be kind of like a bobblehead when you're in the studio doing a voicing a character, because you have to stay on mic. So you're limited. Like if you're doing a fight scene, you do the physical exertions, but you have to keep your mouth right on mic, so that you kind of, it's almost like a reverse bobblehead. Your body is moving like crazy, but your head is just basically kind of still right there in front of the mic, uh, which is kind of an odd concept. But that's the way it has to go. You're limited as to how much physical movement you can deliver, because you have to keep, we call it staying on mic.
Right. That's amazing. But yeah, I could definitely picture that in the studio, like just being like a human version of a bobblehead during the
Yeah.
recording of the mic.
Right. Steve Bloom, when he's doing his fights as Spike. He was really very good at that, being very physical, but keeping his head on mic.
But like, what was like your favorite anime or animated series to work on?
Uh, I think it's pretty clearly for me. It's Cowboy Bebop. That whole project just came together just nicely with Mary Elizabeth directing and with Steve and Wendy Lee and Melissa as the actors, and the guest cast as well. That was just a phenomenal experience, and it has the fact that it has the longevity. We did the series in '98, and then we did the movie. I don't know when is that, right? 2000 or 2001, around that time. We actually voiced, and a lot of people don't realize, we actually voiced the video game,
Oh
the
wow.
Cowboy Bebop, the video game. We voiced it, and it never saw the light of day. And we still, to this day, don't know why, what happened to that. But we actually voiced the Cowboy Bebop video game, and we were really excited about it too. I mean, the bounty hunters going out there catching the bad guys and having all of their personal dramas. But who knows? It's like Mr. Watanabe didn't want to do any more episodes of Cowboy Bebop, and that was the mystery too. He said that's it and that's it, and it was so well received. But he still, both in Japan and around the English speaking world, but he decided that was it, and we're not going to do any more. And for whatever reason, the video game never surfaced. But I also like Legend of Black Heaven, the concept of saving the world. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The legend OG, he was saving the world with his music. You
Oh
being a
wow.
musician, I think you might like that.
I think I might like that very much.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah,
be.
yeah. Check it out. Check it out.
I'll definitely check that one out.
Yeah, yeah. Black Heaven, Legend of Black Heaven.
Absolutely. Now, speaking about with Cowboy Bebop, like obviously one of the most famous moments in the series is obviously the final scene in regards to Stephen Bloom's characters. Like what do you think happened to his character at the end of the series?
Well, I mean, if you're separating the series from the movie, I mean, you know what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, we have two choices. He dies, or you know, they just continue their epic, their journeys. And I like to feel like they continued their journeys, and I like to look upon the movie as a completely different one of, just
Mm.
like a one of thing.
Right, and also with as you mentioned before, there, who knows if the possibility there might be like more episodes of Cowboy Bebop, but how, but where would you like to see them go if they ever decide to do like a season two of Cowboy Bebop, or if they ever did maybe like a spin off series on Cowboy Bebop, let's like focus on Edward, for example, or focus on Jet, or even focus on Foo's character as well. How, how much would you want to see those kind of series?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. And when you do a series like even on camera, when you have your group of series regulars, and everybody kind of like has their turn of having their major episodes, and there was a bit of that with Cowboy Bebop as well. Um, so it has so many possibilities. It's just um, in a way it's sad to think that it's like it's over,
Mm.
because it has so many possibilities of where we could go. Because basically we were in our solar system. Ganymede, the one of the moons of Jupiter, and so it would be very cool to see it branch out way deep into other galaxies, and I mean, we're only limited by our imagination, and but yeah, I would love to see. Um, Actually, it would be interesting to see them go on about go on about their business as they split up, and then maybe come back together again, and see Jet as an old guy. He's a great grandfather now, and of course, Faye's thing. So Faye's actually about 73 years old. Um, but yeah, it would be. I mean, we've talked about that, the group. Um, when we get together periodically, but it just seems like it's not to be. Mr. Watanabe, he put it to rest, and that's where it is.
Of course, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah. There's always hope, right?
Absolutely,
And
there's always hope.
there was that talk for quite a while about it becoming a live action, a live action show with Keanu Reeves doing Spike, and
Oh,
but it's never. It seems like that's not going to come to pass either.
well, I've actually got a question about that, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. But other anime shows that you've been best known for are Naruto, Digimon, Gungrave, Rave Master, Black Heaven, and Tiger and Bunny. What series did you enjoy like working on the most?
Well, I enjoyed all of them. I like Naruto Shippuden, playing the fourth Raikage, and I don't know how much you know about Naruto, but I have a brother, uh, B, who's a ne'er do well, and he's kind of like a street cat. He says, "Hey, what's up? What's up, bro? What's going on, bro? Hey, you got it going on, my man. You got it going on." And then, of course, the character that I voice uh, is the fourth Raikage, who's, "Hey, B, what are you doing? You're always messing up. Why can't you act like a regular person?" And but yeah, I really enjoy that. It's hard to say. It's really enjoyable to do all of these. Um, I mean, um, Ben Jackson and Tiger and Bunny. He was this like a father figure there, which Jet is kind of this same way. Um, but as I say, I play fathers now, like Hunter x Hunter, Nostrad, and so. But it's hard to pick one to say one is so much fun. As I say, Black Heaven was a lot of fun because uh, I voiced the main character, and it was about his music and his family life, his music, and saving the universe with his music. So that was really a lot of fun to do. And Cowboy Bebop was terrific, and one of the great things about Cowboy Bebop is it has created a lot of interaction with the fans, which is that's it's so awesome. I mean, it's all about the fans. It's all about you know delivering entertainment and telling a story to folks. And when you have the positive responses to people from people with what you do, it's just so absolutely rewarding. Like when I do conventions, I'd love to come to Australia to do a convention. Um, if there's anybody out there wants to ask for me, I'd love to come.
We'll definitely make it
I,
happen. We'll
I'm
definitely
sorry.
make it happen.
Oh, okay. Well, do what you can. Yeah, I was there. I did a film there in 1999 up on the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, um, um, and I was there for about a month. What a great time! Boy, it just had a. We flew into Sydney, and then we flew up to Coolangatta up north, and I just love the country, love the people. Um, you guys, I mean, it's an awesome country with awesome people.
Thank you so much, bro. And it just warms my heart to hear people say that about our country. And I feel the same way about America as well.
Oh, that's cool. Have you been here?
I've been to America a couple of years ago, actually,
Oh, cool.
for with my family on a holiday, like for about a month. I traveled from
Oh,
like
nice.
Yeah, I traveled from like New York to Las Vegas, LA, Mexico, and Hawaii as well.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yeah. So, we have a wonderful country. We have our faults, like all countries do, but I think basically people are nice and are giving and caring people. And they say when I had nothing but positive experiences there. Um, when I was there, I just had a ball, and I'd love to come back and say hello.
Abs- Absolutely, we'll definitely try to make it happen. Now, two other roles actually were actually my introduction to your work was Cyborg 009 and Rurouni Kenshin. What was it like doing those series?
Well, I played a Native American on 009. That was very awesome. And Rurouni Kenshin, as I recall, I voiced Gohai, where that's where I got my butt kicked by what, the 12-year-old or 11-year-old.
Yeah, yes, yes.
And it got kicked in my goodies.
Yes, yes, I remember that one. I remember that episode.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, voicing these big bad guys, tough guys, is fun, especially when you get your butt kicked by a young kid. That was that was that was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that. I remember doing that fight. I enjoyed that immensely. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. And speaking about with Rurouni Kenshin, it has been adapted into the live action world. What has been your opinion on anime being adapted into the live action world?
Well, I think it's wonderful, especially now with the computers, the way they can do things. I think it's wide open. I mean, that's more entertainment for folks, and especially if there's anime that popular anime that people love. Why not?
Mm,
Because people can, all of the magic that used to be only that you could do with animation, now you can mix it in with live action, and so there are no limitations on what you can do. So I'm all for that. I'm totally
fantastic.
totally on board for that.
Fantastic. And what has been like one anime or animated series that you worked on, would you want to see turned into a live action TV or film series, as well as make a guest appearance in?
Well, I have to say Cowboy Bebop, of course.
Of course.
Come on, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a totally nostalgic trip for me. It's kind of like I mean, if uh, because Jet is supposed to be like 35 years old, right? So I would be like Jet's father.
Yeah, yeah, that would
He'd call me
that would be
daddy.
really cool. That would be awesome. But yeah, definitely fingers crossed if they ever make it happen. And as
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to do a little cameo on that.
and as an actor, what was the most challenging role for you to play in both live action and voice acting?
Challenging role. Let me see. Hmm. Well, I'll have to say, in voice acting, I did orcs in the World of Warcraft movie, which could have been received better, but vocally, that was vocally challenging because I don't know if you're familiar with that franchise.
Yeah, the World of Warcraft series. Yeah, I know I know the World of Warcraft
Yeah.
series.
Well,
Yeah.
doing the voicing the orcs, uh, trying to being an animal type and doing that for 8 hours is that's that was very physically challenging. And then there have been times where guys have gotten nosebleeds. I mean, it's when you're doing something like that, uh, it's obviously vocally challenging. But when you're doing it for 8 hours, that's a lot.
Wow.
And if you're doing generally speaking, like in a video game, we don't have hours and hours and hours of that, and so it's not so bad on our voices. But if you when you're doing that, you really don't sound like yourself for a couple days after that. So you're basically shut down from working because you don't sound like yourself from auditioning and from doing jobs to talk like a regular human being
Mm.
after growling like an animal forever. for 8 hours or so. Uh, that's that's uh, that's a real huge challenge. On camera, I'm trying to think. I can't recall anything that was when you say challenge. I'm thinking you maybe troublesome, something that was troublesome. I don't recall having an
Right.
experience like that. It was. I've been very lucky in my life in many ways, and in that regard as well. I have to say one of my favorite roles, stage roles, was Hulk in Driving Miss Daisy. I don't know if you've ever seen Driving Miss Daisy. Are you familiar with Driving Miss Daisy?
I've heard the name before, but I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever seen any adaptation of it before.
Morgan Freeman. It was a play,
Ah.
and Morgan Freeman played. He was a chauffeur for a woman in the South in Atlanta, and and I did that play uh, 4 times. I did it, and
Wow.
actually I was uh, nominated for an Ovation Award here for my performance in that. An Ovation Award is kind of like the local Tony Awards here in Los Angeles, for Los Angeles for Los Angeles stage plays.
Right.
Um, yeah, that was a it's basically it's a three-person play, but it's basically a two-person play. So it's just two of us on stage the whole time, and it's pretty challenging because you're using minimal sets. You have two stools, and you have to turn it into a car. You know, and so, and as a matter of fact, I remember someone coming backstage telling me that they were amazed that I was able to turn two stools into a car. Actually convincing them, shining it and looking at the stools are facing, and she would be in the back seat, and so I had to pretend like there was a rear view mirror there, and I would adjust the mirror, and I would look in the mirror, the imaginary mirror, and see her, and kind of have conversations with her while I was, you know, using this imaginary steering wheel to drive the car. So that was challenging, but it's a lot of fun too. But that's what actors do. You try to create a reality for the audience, and that's an enjoyable reality for them. And apparently, I was really successful at that. But that was pretty challenging.
Right. That's fantastic. And what's like a one character or series in both anime and live action have you ever wanted to play or ever wished that you played?
Hmm. Well, one in live action is Shaft. Are you familiar with Shaft?
Um,
It's
I
like
think.
a black. He's like a black James Bond.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Shaft was the character, and it was in the. It was. I guess it was in the '70s, late '60s, '70s, um, and and he was a tough customer. He's really cool, and wore his suits, and he was like, as I say, he was like a black James Bond. Is what he was. So that would have been a fun role to play. As far as let me think. As far as I can't think of anything other than that. Um, yeah, I think that's all I got for you on that one.
That's but that's awesome though. That would be awesome to see like Shaft though. Like as you said, a black version of James Bond. That would be pretty cool though to see something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was. He did a number of. There were a number of those. Uh, Richard Roundtree, who did Shaft. He actually is a friend of mine.
Oh wow.
Uh, he, yeah, he was a tough guy, and it took place in Harlem, which is a black
Mm.
section of New York, uh, mostly. And but yeah, that was he was just too cool.
That's fantastic though. But and as an actor, what would you say has been the one role that resonates with you the most and you feel like you could relate to as a person?
Well, I think I have to go back to Jess Jordan
Right.
because I am a grandfather, and as I say, that was just I mean, it's just like the ultimate to work with your family. You know, to work with my granddaughter, uh, and she was always running around the soundstage because I mean she was running around the soundstage like Miss Queen Bee and she and to see her having such fun was it was just awesome. That was I think that was the best.
That's fantastic and absolutely true. And if you could change one thing about the entertainment industry, what would that be, and why?
Um, well, you know, I would obviously I think it needs to be more inclusive uh, and be more representative of our country and of the world. Um, but on the inside of the business, um, that's the same thing. Having uh, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences more reflective of society, and but in terms of the way it actually works, you know, years ago when we go in for an audition, we would the director would be there and maybe the writer and producer and casting director, and you'd audition, you'd meet people, and you had a chance to chat a bit, you know, before you audition. Now the way it works is, generally speaking, you go in and they only the casting director there and a camera operator's there, and they put you on tape, and so they video you, and that's all the directors and producers. That's all they see. They don't get to see the chat with Bo. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I remember one of the things I developed, a habit I developed over the course of my career was to, when I got hired at a right time, I catch the director and ask him, why did I get hired, to try to get an idea of how I'm seen and what, you know, what about me that's sellable.
Mm.
Um, and uh, one of the directors told me, he said, well, you just seem like you'd be fun to hang out with. And that
Wow.
was the oddest answer.
That is a really odd answer.
I thought it was gonna be something about about my talent or whatever. And he said it was. We thought you'd be fun to hang out with for a week. I said, oh, okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. And I remember I auditioned for when I auditioned for Dallas. Have you heard of that show, Dallas?
Ah, no,
Well,
I don't.
anyway, they're doing a remake of Dallas. It was a TV series back in the day, and it takes place in Dallas, Texas. And it was about J.R. Ewing and the oil family and this and that. And Patrick Duffy, who was one of the stars of the show, was directing this particular episode that actually, I was auditioning for like a 3 or 4 show arc. In the show, I was going to be playing a Jamaican doctor. And so I booked it, and I got a chance to ask him that question. And you know, and so I got an answer. He said, "Well, you had a nice, gentle way about you. What is it? A nice, warm, gentle manner about you." I said, "Oh, okay." Um, but see, that was back in the day when, you know, you went into the room and they chatted. You know, you chatted a bit before you did your audition. But now, because of the video, they see just the video and that's all they see.
Mm.
And the other angle about that is that when they're watching, you know, when you get a chance to chat with people, um, if you don't get that role and you do a good job, they remember you. And that happened to me a couple of times where I didn't book it, and then they called me back for something else because of the interaction that we had.
Wow.
So that's something I would like to go back and see. The thing is, when you they just put you on tape, you don't meet people.
Mm. Yeah.
So years ago, I mean, if you had, let's say you had 10 auditions and maybe you booked 3 or 4 of them, and but those are 10 directors that you met, maybe 10 writers or 7 writers and producers, or you got a chance to chat with them, for them to get a feel for who you were as a human being. Um, because as I say, that one of those directors told me, he said he thought I would be fun to hang out with for a week. and which was a shocking answer to me. I thought he was going to talk about my work, but he just talked about, yeah, you'd be fun to hang out with for a week, and we had a lot of fun because I went in with for the audition, and I was I don't know, just I told a joke, and I was talking about this, talking about that, and asked them about themselves, and it was just like a nice, pleasant experience. And so that's one of the things I would change. I'd go back to that style of auditioning. And I got to tell you this real quickly, because I'm going to have to go pretty soon. Back in the day, when I started, we didn't even have fax machines, right?
Yeah.
So if I got a call for an audition, I'd have to drive down to MGM to pick up the sides. Now, this is probably hard for your generation to understand. Driving someplace to pick up a piece of paper.
Oh,
but I had
man.
to drive to pick up. And so what we would do is I'd ask my manager or ask my agent, so, well, how large is this part? Because if it wasn't very large, what I would do is instead of driving down to MGM twice, I would go early. So instead of driving down MGM today to pick up the sides to audition tomorrow, I just say, okay, I'll go tomorrow. And then I would go a half an hour early, pick up the sides, go in the hallway, prepare the piece, and then audition. So that was the way. That was our life back in the day. Where, as I say, you're lucky if you get 2 or 3 auditions a year when you're first starting, and then you had to go drive and pick up a piece of paper.
Right. That's crazy. But now on to the final question. What do you think Jet Black would say if he was in Australia?
Oh my gosh, what would Jet Black say if he was in Australia? Good eye, Mike. How are ya? We're having bell peppers and beef, we are? Yep, bell peppers and beef. That's the beef.
That's fantastic.
That's all I got.
That's all right, but that's fantastic though. Bo Billingsley, thank you so much. It's been an honor. And anything you would like to say to the fans out there, particularly in Australia?
Well, to all my Australian mates, I would like to say I love you all and thank you for watching and listening to me and my endeavors. And one day I'd like to come out and visit you at a convention.
We'll definitely do our best to make it happen. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
It's been my pleasure, Simon. You have a great evening, and say hello to your family for me.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Bo Billingsley, you can check out the links down below in the description, as well as my links as well. And don't forget to subscribe down below onto Hannah Talk, as well as my other channels. And also, if you guys have any requests for any interviews you want me to do, any reviews, any stuff you want me to review, like movies, music, anime, or anything at all, just leave them below in the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is Simon, signing off.